Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from prehistoric Earth, I'll be your host, Dave Trumbore. Joining me as always, he's the leader of the Predacons, my co-host, Shawnaconda Ellis. How's it going tonight, sir?
David, I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy?
Doing really good, man. I think we have a very special guest with us tonight, if I'm not mistaken.
We do, yeah.
He's actually the one and only captain of the Maximals. It's Matt, Bat Attack, Reuter. How's it going, buddy?
I like that a lot, Dave.
You like Bat Attack?
I will gladly take Bat Attack on that one.
I was explaining Bat Attack to somebody the other day, and they were like, "That sounds awesome." Well,
yeah, it was.
You know, this is it's right around the holiday.
Yeah. You might
season.
have just celebrated Halloween. You still might have some of your decorations up, so you might have a Bat Attack hanging around the house.
Yeah, why not? I don't see a problem with that.
I mean, you
Dave,
would know
you're
if you
speaking
did.
from experience on that.
If it was like a surprise thing that you didn't know, and then you were just like, Bat Attack, you might want to talk about it. It's just one of those stupid bats that hangs from the doorway, and when you make noise, it drops on you and scares the shit out of you.
Oh, it's the best.
It's a good time.
It's the best. It's the best for holiday fun.
Yeah, holiday fun. Now, Sean,
It doesn't have to. It's not solely restricted to Halloween.
That's true.
It's
You can
spice
put a
up
Santa hat
Thanksgiving.
on them, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, dress them up like a turkey leg.
Get creative.
Yeah, why not?
Or
You
just
do
straight
you.
hang a turkey leg from it.
Yeah,
Actually,
just
I
eat
would
that bat.
really enjoy that.
I would get that.
If every
That
time
sounds
I clapped,
perfect.
a turkey leg would just drop into my mouth, yeah. I'm just going to wrap up this podcast right now. We're going to go make that happen.
Mistakes.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We've got $1 million idea to go tend to.
We will be back, and please no one take this before we get there. Thanks.
And in the meantime, Dave
Patent
will
pending?
transform into a shark and appear on an episode of Shark Tank.
In an actual Shark Tank. And I like that you said
Or the next
transform.
Sharknado?
Oh, we could. But that doesn't segue into tonight's show quite as well as Sean's transforming quote.
Well, there's just as shitty of animation in Sharknado as there is in this show.
That's
so
fair.
There's a
30
bit of
years
a
later.
link there.
Yeah, totally fair.
And we've learned nothing.
No, we have not, somehow. $18 million I read that this first season cost to produce.
Are you serious?
$18 million from Mr. Bob Forward, who we will get back to in a moment. But,
I feel like that was just lining someone's pocket.
I mean, he may have just had a check for $18 million. It doesn't mean that it necessarily went into the production of the show. But
All on the screen. It's
don't have
all
info
on
on
the
that.
screen.
Do you want to say it was something like where Bob would walk around and he goes, "Want to see a check with a lot of zeros at the end of
Yeah.
it?" Like that was his bar pickup line. He's
I just
like,
hope he
"You,
cashed that eventually, because otherwise...
I'm actually just going to write one to myself and just walk around and be like, "You guys want to see a check with a lot of zeros on it?"
You're gonna post date that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah, you probably...
And then I'm going to write void. I'm going to write to
Yeah,
void.
definitely.
From void.
To
In the memo line, void.
To void. Date void. A very special
Sean.
listener will win the voided check from Sean Paul Ellis, so make sure to email us SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. Hey, we're going to jump into the show tonight. If you haven't figured it out yet, it's Beast Wars Transformers style. So how about that? Good guess, everybody. Sean's going to walk us through a little bit of the history in addition to the $18 million cost of the first season.
I almost feel like when you said we're going to do Beast Wars Transformers, all of the air is sucked out of the room into a vacuum.
No, people love Beast Wars Transformers.
Yeah.
Or
so
its
Beast
Canadian
Wars,
title.
Yeah, so this is the best. So Beast Wars Transformers, it's also titled Beasties Transformers in Canada, is an American-Canadian CG animated television series that debuted in 1996, and it ran for 3 seasons, totaling 52 episodes. So the Beast Wars TV series was produced by Mainframe Entertainment of Canada, and they are the same company that did another show that we loved, which is called Reboot.
I never would have guessed.
I never would have guessed from watching this. Its story editors were Bob Forward, who is actually very important, and we'll talk about him in a second, and Larry DiTillo. Bob Forward is important because, as we mentioned on the show, he also wrote He-Man, Ghostbusters, Brave Star, Cops. We haven't talked about Slimers and the Real Ghostbusters yet, but Legend of Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Super Show, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, the crappy one, and Exo Squad. And so, I mean, there's so many things that Bob Forward has done, so it's crazy to see the list. And this is just, I don't know how he got this one as a notch on his bedpost.
What happened is my question.
Well, I mean, it says, the production designer for the show, Clyde Klotz, he won a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Individual Achievement in Animation in 1997 for his work. This won a Daytime Emmy.
I like to think that outstanding individual achievement means he was the only one animating this entire show. So he was just like attached
that might
to a
explain
computer.
a lot. It was like, well, I mean, it's the A for Effort award where it's like, we know you're doing a lot of work. It's not good, but we just see the sheer amount of work that you're putting in, like the man hours you're logging in making this show. Because
Exactly. Yeah, literal E
Lord.
for effort with an Emmy this.
It's
Yes.
Clyde doing it. And he's like, look, this is my passion project. I'm gunning for a daytime Emmy, guys. This is important.
And only
to me.
56 episodes, too, so it didn't even make it to the normal 60 for syndication.
Yeah.
Yeah, 60,
Didn't
65
hit the
that we
65
usually see.
for
65.
syndication.
Yeah, this is one of those
Yeah.
that doesn't quite reach that mark. But we are probably going to tear this one apart tonight. I'm not sure how it's going to go, but
If you had to sum up this
Yeah.
this healthy turd, how would you do that?
Ooh, healthy turd.
Can you synopsis this? Can synopsize for this?
I can synopsize. So the series was
Thank
set
you.
in the future of the original Transformers universe as a sequel to the first Transformers series. It featured two main factions of Transformers, but just in case you think it's going to be Autobots and Decepticons, you're incorrect. So it's actually descendants of those two factions. We have the Maximals, who are descended from the Autobots, i.e. good guys, and we have the Predacons, who are descended from the Decepticons, obviously, i.e. bad guys. Maximals are led by, here we go, we're going to get into the names here, Optimus Primal.
Can I note for a second
Please do.
and say, was this a chicken or the egg thing? Like, what came first? Did somebody come up with Optimus Primal, and then they were like, and Bob Forward was like, I'm gonna write a whole series based off of this joke name?
Yeah.
Or did he come up, like, did he conceptualize all of this, and then he was like, oh, you know what would be, like one day him like writing, and he's like, oh, Optimus Primal, yes, I've done it. Like,
I
like
I feel like
guarantee
this
the
was like
Prime
on,
came
this
first.
was on like a bar bet.
Oh, yeah.
And like he was just in too deep at a certain point because he'd already invested so much time. He's like, well, I guess I got to make this show now.
Yeah, we got this great
Optimus
name to build
Prime,
a show around.
How can I change Optimus Prime?
I-
Oh, yes. Save that.
Look,
Oh
I
my
actually liked that when I was a kid. I remember watching this.
Open
and
Apple S.
I was a fan of Optimus Prime, and it was an obvious name. Like, everybody knew that name. So when it
Right.
came out that he was just like, I'm Optimus Primal, I was like, yeah, I'm okay with that. Because
Well,
you're
I mean,
a
not to
gorilla,
mention his
so that's fine.
awful catchphrase throughout the entire show.
We'll get through some of those, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Everybody gets a catchphrase. Every character like has.
Everybody
a
gets
catchphrase.
catchphrase.
Okay.
Once you fade into the rest of this.
Okay, so we've got the Maximals led by Optimus Primal, who battle against. Here's another thing that just made no sense: Megatron. They just battle against Megatron. Like, they don't even get creative with this thing, but whatever. It's Megatron. You know Megatron. Their whole thing is they crash land on this primitive world. They don't know that it's primitive Earth at this point, and their plan is to obtain these powerful energon crystals. The problem is, on this prehistoric Earth, energon actually proves to be poisonous for both sides, their robot form. So they have to take on alternate organic forms, which they scan the countryside and they find whatever living organisms are closest to them, and then they take on those beast forms to sort of defend themselves against this poisonous energon energy. So they can only be in their robot modes for anywhere from a few minutes to, half an episode, depending on what the animator or animator sees fit. And that's pretty much it. So we've got a bunch of robot animals running around a
Oh boy.
prehistoric Earth, dueling for crystals, essentially. Now,
That
was this
pretty
one?
much sums it up.
Yeah, pretty much sums. Now, Reuter
Yeah, I mean-
Reuter brought this one to our, not really to our attention, but he suggested this one for the show. So
And
I
I would
wanna-
like to come out and say I'm so sorry that I suggested this because I was such a huge fan of
Yeah.
this one as a kid, and like it was just such nostalgia. I'm like, oh, and I hadn't seen it since I was like 12 or whenever,
Right.
however old I was. So I remember having such fond memories of it, and then I was watching it again last night, and I was like, oh no, what happened?
welcome
I
to
was like,
every week on Saturday Morning Cartoon.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, some of them hold up. I mean, some of the cartoons that you guys have covered on this show, they hold up. I mean, obviously, as an adult, you're going to view anything that's meant for kids differently.
Right.
But you still can look at it and be like, oh, there's redeeming qualities to it. But this one, I was just like, I was struggling so much to find anything to be like, okay, how can I justify this pick to everyone that's going to be
You're like, I'm
listening
in
to
too
this and
deep
to you
now. How do I
guys?
dig myself out of this? Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I was in too deep on that.
Now, this one we watched the first two episodes because it was actually a two-part pilot, just titled Beast Wars. But to be fair, so we're only going to talk about those two episodes tonight. So if you are a fan of this show and we've ripped apart these first two episodes, do yourself a favor, go back and watch them again with fresh eyes. But I do know there is a lot of fandom out there for the rest of the series that at first people were not very happy with this series. They hated the animation. They probably did not like the characters or how they handled them. But later on, when the stories kind of progress and they go into the comics and things like that, people actually really like the way that the storylines were treated. So I will just say that. That's kind of our heads up moment. But we won't be talking about the good stuff. We'll be talking about the first 2 episodes. Sean,
And
you
I
want to
mean,
get into the opening
and it-
theme here, bub?
I'm going to just say
Yeah.
before we jump into the opening thing, like in their defense, like pilot episodes are always
They're rough.
not the best.
Yeah.
You know,
No, and that's true. Maybe I'm being too harsh, but I think maybe it's just because I wanted it to be so good and I remember it being so good. And again, maybe I'm just recalling the later like season episodes whenever they actually did kind of get their groove.
You've been Voltron, buddy. You've been
Yeah.
straight Voltroned. Oof. All right. So, I want to sum up this theme song in like I guess maybe 5 beats.
Is it going to be a thumbs up sum up, though?
It's a thumbs up sum up.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Or in 5 beats. Spaceships.
Okay.
Crashing spaceships.
Okay.
A
It's kind
yellow.
of a sub beat, but I'll take it.
Okay, thanks. A yellow pea light that washes over a bunch of animals.
Okay.
Followed by the title Beast Wars
True.
being screamed at you. And then Optimus Prime showing that he can transform by doing a burpee. And that's pretty much the whole theme song.
With like weird electro guitar music riffs in the back, just accompanying,
And then
accompanying really bad animation.
And at one point, it looked like the spider character that you meet later on is shooting guns from every leg that he has, but they're showing a single piece of animation, and it looks like it's looped for 5 seconds. So he seems like he's just twitching
Just having a
repeatedly
seizure.
while
Yeah, he's having a seizure.
Which is a frequent theme in this show.
That's the whole theme song to me. I was like, okay, crashing ships, pea light, Beast Wars, burpee transformation, twitching spider. Got it.
I love
there's also that really good shot where
Yeah.
the Tyrannosaurus Rex is trying to eat.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And at the time, you
okay.
don't know who is who or who is what, and
Right.
at least in the pilot episode. So it's Optimus and Megatron, and I don't know. I was just like, but really, I don't.
No, dude,
this
I
whole
wrote
thing,
that one down too because it looks like they're just making out in the middle of this theme
It
song.
really does.
Because he
And I
Optimus
wish
kind of
they
like twists
were.
Megatron's face so that his jaw is lined up with his mouth, and he just comes in for the kill. And then they cut away before anything sexy happens, unfortunately. But
I wonder if there's anywhere in the world, and I mean that by saying on the internet,
Yeah.
if there's any Beast Wars Transformers fanfic
there's gotta be.
where
Gotta be.
Primal just gets primal.
Oh, just primal.
Let's instinct
Animalistic.
take over and get into it.
Ooh.
The curious thing about the theme song or this intro was, if you are familiar with the Transformers, the original animated series, if you're familiar with it, sort of the spaceships, cruising around and
Right.
sort of like this fight, and then them crashing into a planet. It's very common. Like, it's common in a lot of shows. It was in
They ripped it
Dino
off quite a bit.
Riders. It's been in a bunch of stuff, but for Transformers, it's very specific that the animated television series starts. The original animated television starts with the Autobots and the Decepticons crashing into Earth, and they're doing the exact same thing that you come to see in the first episode. Like, they're being chased, and they're just like, we're trying to escape from these people. Oh crap, we've been hit. We're going down. Shit, now we're on Earth. And and so if you had that context watching this, I think it made a little bit more sense. But if you watch this without ever, like, I don't understand how you watch this with little to no context, and we're just
Explain
this
that.
all
Walk
makes
me through
sense.
that.
So I mean, there's not a lot to really walk through it. For whatever reason, I never watched original Transformers. I was aware of them,
Yeah.
but I never watched it. And for whatever reason, whenever this show came out, I just jumped on board this one. So I didn't have any of like the backstory kind of context for it. So I was just like, oh, this is really cool. So it was like kind of the first Transformers that I really got into. So it had some of the same general elements, and as a kid, I've got a thing that turns into another thing
Right.
that shoots guns and shit. So it's like, all right, from that level, you're like, oh, awesome. But this is, before my brain was fully formed and understanding story and character
Were
development.
you watching
and I
this
was-
like in
In
the
utero?
womb?
It's entirely possible. I'm
Oh,
not
okay.
entirely sure. No, I mean, I don't know how old I was.
I don't know how brains work.
How do brains work? No, but I just I I never watched it, so like, yeah, this was the first one, and I know it's like weird, and I imagine just people are gonna be like, what the fuck? How could you not watch original Transformers and then think that this was like the better of the series as a kid? And I don't really have a good answer for that.
No,
Hey,
I
man,
mean,
it's a unique experience. That's all. I think that's kind of cool.
It's what you watched at that time, and there's no wrong answer. There's no wrong really.
I'm not saying it was right or wrong. I'm just saying I can see why it's odd. I imagine maybe if I had watched the first one, this might be better.
Okay.
Like if just having more of a context for it. But I don't know. I mean, it's hard to, like, if I were to watch original Transformers now, I can't, the sequence is off, so I can't go back and look at it and be like, oh, all this makes sense now.
Yeah,
now,
but see, I don't really know like if having watched the original Transformers would help or would actually hurt your level of confusion, because I feel like if you watched the original one, you knew Optimus Prime, you knew that the Decepticons were chasing the Autobots at some point, that they crash land like Sean mentioned, and that they show up on Earth. You'd probably be confused as hell that there were just a bunch of like dinosaurs and gorillas and giant rats running around, just be like, the fuck am I watching? So at least for you came into it fresh, and you still were like, the fuck am I watching? But you didn't have that, that backstory built in that you were expecting to see, diesel trucks and tanks and helicopters, and you got
right. But the tropes, or not necessarily tropes, but like you're saying, like, oh, the ships crash land. This is a common thing that happened in a lot of cartoons, but obviously in Transformers. So like this would not be like, oh, this, I don't know, like this seems kind of like nonsense, because they even call out and I guess we'll get more into it whenever we're talking about the episode, but they call out that like, oh, we're like this, this exploration ship. We're not like a warship or something like that. It's like, then what the fuck are you doing, like locked in battle with this warship? Like it doesn't just fly away. Like what are you doing even in the same area, unless you were both exploring Earth, I guess, or like looking to go to Earth? Because it sounds like that's where everyone's ultimate destination was.
Yeah, that part was a little confusing, but they do show Megatron just being like a complete dick about it, where he's just like, haha, we've got them now, and we'll just blow them out of the sky, basically. But
that's fine, because he's just an out-and-out bad guy. You don't need to know his motivation, why he's doing anything. He's just like, that's the bad guy. And we have the same, at least in name, bad guy's the original one, so that you have the context for if you watch the original.
Yeah, which is I think is the only reason they kept that name, honestly.
Probably, yeah.
He could have just been like Megatronus Rex or something, just
right. Yeah, why did they go with
different.
That's such a better name.
I don't know. King Megatron is basically what it would have been, but I don't know. If we do a reboot, we can talk about it. Go ahead, Sean.
I want to point out and say that I know I was giving Matt a little bit of shit about how did you kind of coming into this, or at least in talking about the opening credits and saying just how kind of confusing if you don't have that context. The good thing about this is that if you're watching it, it's 30 seconds long.
Yeah.
And then the episode immediately jumps into those points anyway. So it's not like you're missing a ton of context. Like they get right into it from the beginning. And so do we want to switch over and talk about some of these?
Well, we might as well get into the episodes, because I think there's a lot of stuff that happens within the episodes. I mean, I want to talk about the body horror of these transformations.
Oh my god!
But we might as well do it within the context of the episode. So
it's uncomfortable.
It's really uncomfortable. It's like Cronenberg level body horror stuff going on here.
Yeah, it's naked lunch.
It's like The Fly meets. I would love to see Cronenberg's Beast Wars. Just complete just disaster.
Can you imagine how Rhinox would transform in that instance?
His entire body would just flip inside out.
Jaw that just is in his chest. Oh,
it's really disturbing. We'll get into it.
God, I wanted to throw up. Every time he transformed, I was like,
they were all really bad, because some bodies just like twist completely in half. So you just like, you're severing your spine, you're dislocating your jaw, you're ripping your own tail off. It's really gross. But we'll get into it. So, Reuter, since you are a special guest tonight, I'm going to have you go through the synopsis of the episodes that we watched here for the listeners.
Okay, sure. So, the first half of the pilot, which is the first actual episode, is just self-titled. It's just Beast Wars. A band of benevolent Maximals track a pack of power-seeking Predacons to a mysterious planet, which we then later find out to be Earth. When they both crash land, they establish themselves upon the planet and clash, commencing the Beast Wars.
Say it like you mean it.
The Beast Wars.
There you go.
Now put some electronic guitar riffs in there. Yeah,
we'll
add those
go
in
ahead.
post.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. You can add that in post.
Just say it, and Dave and I will do it for you.
Beast Wars. A large mountain containing the precious mineral Energon is discovered. This leads to a race between the Maximals and Predacons that accumulates in a brawl between the beasts.
I love whoever wrote these synopses, and it wasn't me, that they just love alliteration. It's like their favorite thing to do. I think they just learned it in like 6th grade English. They're like, oh, alliteration. Brawl between beasts.
It could have been me.
Power
I love
packed.
alliterations, so this easily could have been me.
I mean,
writing
I
all
like
these.
alliterations as much as the next guy,
Okay,
but
well,
this is
We're 2/3 pro for alliteration, so we're all good.
Yeah. What are you? Were you a big fan of assonance?
I'm anti-alliteration.
Which
I'm all about assonance.
I know.
good word. Dave.
Dat assonance.
Oh,
Dad
no.
ass.
Hashtag it.
Yeah, you
All right,
heard.
let's get into it.
All right.
So, well, like you guys mentioned, I mean, this thing pretty much kicks off with that space race. So we've
Right.
got the weirdest thing about this for me was that you don't actually see the robots in disguise because they're just in shadow. Like you see them from like the back of their head, the side, but everybody's like in the darkness for the most part. You
It's
occasionally
like all in their eyes too. It's
Yeah.
like every time that any of them are talking, it's like this cool. Like they're trying to do like a cool shot. But again, this is a computer animated thing, so
Right.
it's not like if this was a movie or something like that where you can get like an actual shot of just like a cool looking shadow across their eyes. And like no, it's just
black. It's just my
yeah,
screen
it's
is
just
half
black and then
Yeah, I
eyes.
mean, Clyde Klotz was really working on these, and he was just like, "Look, if I'm gonna get a daytime Emmy for outstanding individual achievements, I'm gonna add some negative space into this bitch."
Where can I cut
You'll
those
fucking
corners?
love it.
I've
How
only
can
got
I get-
$18 million to spend. Where can I cut those corners?
and 18 million, and this is in 1996
Yeah,
dollars.
that's Clinton money.
So-
That's Clinton dollars.
Yeah,
You do
This
whatever you
actually is
want
probably
back
what-
then.
this was the reason why the economy was booming under Clinton. It
Oh no,
was-
fuck! That's Oprah money at
That's
that
Oprah
time.
money
That's
at that
Oprah
point.
money.
Sure.
that seems low.
Really?
All I know is that
I don't know how much.
that budget burst the
She's
beast.
priceless to me.
Several,
Woman is priceless to me.
several billion.
Priceless to you. This budget burst the beast bubble. That's all I wanted to say. So
Oh, that's the best.
yeah. So
You did it.
Okay, so we've got this. There's a lot of kind of weird things that happen in this clash in space. We don't really know what's going on. We don't really know why they are fighting, like you guys mentioned, especially because the Maximal ship is just a scout ship, just an explorer.
Yeah.
But then we learn that, Megatron and his ilk has something that, Reuter, you mentioned this offline, that it's introduced, but it's not explained, and then we're supposed to know what it is. So we don't know if it came from the original series or not. So why don't you talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, and this is getting into, I guess it's later in the episode from this opening scene, but Dinobot comes out and he's yes, Dinobot. They really reached for that name. So
Yeah,
these
really.
the names of the characters are fucking priceless. Like Dinobot.
Well, because it's confusing, and I'll throw this in there for Transformer lore, is
Yeah.
that like Dinobots are a species
Yeah.
of Transformers, not just
Oh, see,
a
I didn't know
single,
that.
not
So-
just a single. I mean, there's Grimlock.
Right.
There's
He's like the
I
most
mean,
famous one.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Well, they
of
were all
other
just featured in the
Dinobots.
last live action film too. It was like all the Dinobots, more or less, are supposed
Oh
to
my
be
god,
there.
it was
I know.
awful.
But yeah, so
the
it's
one,
weird.
The one with
when-
Marky Mark?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't see it, so I
What do you mean you didn't see my movie?
Didn't you at least
What are
see
you
all
doing?
the marketing that they pumped through all social media
Ah.
channels and TV?
Ah,
no, I think this
Ah.
is right around the time I cut the cord, so I didn't have cable
Probably
anymore.
a good
So-
idea. In
So unless
retrospect.
it was advertising on Hulu,
Really good idea. But yeah, so they introduced the Dinobots in that movie. Not the same Dinobot as this one single character from this kind of spin-off series. So,
Yeah,
so try to keep that in mind. Like,
he-
it's not Autobots and Decepticons. It's Maximals and Predacons. So any names that sound similar, even the ones that are exactly the same, are actually different.
yeah.
So Dinobot is out and he's bitching and moaning about how shitty of a leader Megatron is, and he says this line like we're supposed to know what it is, and I straight up cracked up as soon. He was like, "We stole the gold coin for nothing," and I'm like, "What the fuck is the gold coin? What the hell are you talking about? Gold coin? What are they, prospectors? Like, what the fuck is this?
Oh my
Megatron
god, I
just
would have
bit-
watched
He
that.
just bit into the coin to make sure it was real.
This
Like,
is made of chocolate."
This
Seems legit.
Like, he was like, "We stole the gold," but again, he's like, "We stole the gold coin," and then immediately what should have happened is someone should have had a line after that that explains what the gold coin is, because as viewers we're like, oh, I guess the gold
Oh,
coin is
yeah, the
important
gold coin.
somehow.
Yeah.
But no, that doesn't happen.
No.
It just
Eventually, they talk about it. I don't remember exactly who's talking about it, but eventually they reveal that it's basically like a map. So it's almost like a navigational instrument that apparently Megatron stole, and he's using it to find these stores of Energon. And it happened to point him to this particular planet. Now there's something
Oh.
there's something weird that happens where I don't know if they go through like a time warp or if they go and use their warp drive and it transports them through time. But we learn much later on that they actually end up on a prehistoric Earth. Because there's one point where I don't know if it's Rat Trap or who says it, but he's like, this doesn't look like Earth. And honestly...
But now say it like Rat Trap.
Oh, God. We'll get into him in a second. I don't want to waste Rat Trap impressions.
It just doesn't look like Earth.
Oh, God.
What are we doing here?
This doesn't look
But
like
the thing
Jersey.
is, but also when they drop that line where it's like, oh, it's so casually dropped. I think it's Optimus that says it. It's like, remember, not only did the warp drive like take us far away, but it also transported us through time. It's like, well, you're adding that wrinkle in
are you listening,
at the end
kids?
of the episode?
We're explaining things. Yeah. But it didn't make a whole lot of sense because there were weren't there like 2 moons at that point?
Yeah. So that's odd if this is supposed to be Earth.
That's what I didn't get until later. We'll talk about it in the second episode where there was a reveal. And then once I did a little more research and I realized that like you're supposed to have early proto-humans on this planet. It was like, oh, okay. I guess it is supposed to be Earth. I don't know why there's 2 moons, but there you go. Maybe one's a space station. I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, trying not to jump around too much, but did anyone else kind of get in the opening shot where the 2 ships are doing battle, they're shooting each other and everything like that? Just the way that the shot was composed, did anyone else kind of get the feeling that they were trying to do like something from Star Wars, like the opening scene of Star Wars with the small rebel ship? And
well,
then,
yeah, the ship that they had for the Predacons sort of looked like an Imperial Star Destroyer,
right,
just
so
like it was very triangular in its shape and dimension.
Right, but even the shot where it was like, okay, we have the Maximal ship that's very tiny, but even the shot from the downward angle, blind dominance. Did anyone else get that, or was I just? I mean,
I can see that, but we've seen this in I don't know how many other cartoons where it's almost like the exact same, scene for scene thing that maybe everybody just ripped off Star Wars. And then,
probably.
And then, Transformers did it, so everybody just built off of that. And they were like, this is a really cool way to introduce a show. You know who the good guys are. You know who the bad guys are. The stakes are already set. And then once they crash, then we can like develop the story a little bit more. And that's exactly what happens here. The wrinkle in this one is that when they land... Like we keep
saying wrinkle, and I keep thinking of Madeline L'Engle's Wrinkle in Time.
It's a good book.
I'm just gonna leave it out there
for no other reason.
I was just waiting for the tie-in to like Beast Wars.
You just keep saying wrinkle, and I just keep cracking up about it. So if you continue to hear me laugh, that's why.
If you can figure out a way to tie that directly into Beast Wars, I will be amazed.
I'm gonna work on it.
Okay,
Well, there's a time travel. Isn't there a time travel element in Wrinkle in Time?
I'd imagine.
There's your tie-in, Dave.
There's your tie-in.
Isn't there a gorilla
that talks?
Isn't there a talking silverback gorilla?
Yep.
So that is probably the most interesting part of Beast Wars. The fact that when they get to this planet and they crash land, like we mentioned, there's this Energon is just like overflowing from this planet. So Energon from the original series is basically the energy source for all Autobots, Decepticons, all of these automaton creatures from Cybertron and wherever. So it's their energy source. It's their, non-renewable resource. So that's what they're looking for. So the fact that this place is like overflowing with it is good, but it also has this side effect that they can't stay in their current forms, which is their robot form. So they have to send out these scanners, which is, again, similar to what they did in the original series. But this time around, there's no machine. So we don't have diesel trucks. We don't have Camaros. We don't have Volkswagen Beetles. We have actual Beetles. And we have dinosaurs, apparently.
That was good. That was really good.
We have dinosaurs, apes, and rats all on the same planet
all at the same time.
And for some reason, we have a bee and a spider just fighting.
And they're huge. I love that
just
nobody keeps
giant.
their same size. Everybody's like 6 feet to 12 feet tall.
The scale in this show is so off. And if you're thinking to yourself, you know what, there's no way that these animals could all exist together at the same time.
Correct.
They do a kind of a cool thing where when the Predacons are doing their scan,
that's right.
It pans over a mountain and it kind of flashes very quickly, and you see the skeletal outlines of a Pteranodon and a T-Rex and a Raptor.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I was trying to figure out how those 3 different animals came into play.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a whole. I mean, I guess if I'm trying to find what makes sense in this, maybe that's my fault. But it's like,
don't do that.
Yeah, never do that.
Yeah, I think maybe that's my flaw in this. But it's just like everything else is living. Why would you then throw that element? I mean, obviously, other than the fact it looks cool and you can sell a lot of toys.
Exactly, you just nailed it.
And that's all it is.
That's what they were going for, buddy.
That's all it is.
But yeah,
they were like, you know what would sell really well? Raptors and T-Rexes.
Yeah.
And
Have you
then
heard of
just
this
every
thing called
once in a while
Jurassic Park and or Dino Riders? I feel like
Right.
dinosaurs would do really well.
I can't wait to talk about the Pteranodon, though.
Pterosaur. Do you want to just get into it? Because we need to go sort of name by name and then talk about their transformations, what they kind of look like. And honestly, that was the most interesting thing about these episodes for me. Like the the battle between the two factions, whatever. That's pretty typical
That
stuff.
tail as old as time.
Oh boy, a scorpion tail as old as time. I loved the character design and the terrible names and the awful nightmarish transformations for these guys. So
let's get into it.
Let's start with Pterosaur. You might as well. You want to start with him? I thought he was your buddy.
Pterosaur he's a pteranodon.
Right.
And it was really just, it was so shocking whenever he transformed, because he's in this really high pitch, like he's a pteranodon or a pterodactyl,
right,
like flying down towards everybody, and they all have this catchphrase where all the Predacons say they say like their name.
They say whatever their name is, yeah.
They say whatever their name is. So he goes, Pterosaur, terrorize. But he says it in a way that, can I try it?
Absolutely.
Yes,
you
please
can.
do.
And he goes, Pterosaur!
And then he laughs. So
Terrorize!
Sean's voice is going to be done for the rest of the episode, so Matt will take over. But yeah, that was a pretty good approximation.
It was so...
There's like a screech in there too before he even says anything, as like a pterodactyl would do. So it's like,
yeah, it was like the old school like it was like that old like
metal
50s
band
era like dinosaur movie, throwback in time or whatever. Just like the canned pterosaur sound. They probably had a beautiful song. We don't know.
Every time he transformed, I just lost it. I was like, this. It always caught me off guard, and it continued to happen like multiple times an episode, and I would lose it laughing.
Well, let me ask you, was that your favorite? Was that your favorite one?
Maybe, because some of the other ones were fun, but they were just really off-putting. Like there was a Maximal that kind of creeped me out.
They're all pretty creepy.
Yeah.
More because they're more of the mammalian, so they're all mammals. The other guys, right, the Predacons, are all reptiles or insects. So for whatever reason, it's not quite as creepy. But to watch the mammals go through these transformations is it's quite literally gut wrenching, because that's what they do. They just rip out their own innards and expose them to the outside.
So we mentioned about pterosaurs. So we've talked about Megatron and that he's a T-Rex.
Right.
His I would say his transformation seems pretty standard.
It is, but it's also really disturbing because he just kind of he
severs his spine.
He severs his spine, just cuts it in half and spins around on himself.
Yeah.
And then basically his mouth and his tail end up on either hand, and both turn into weapons somehow. So he just shoots so laser blasts from his tail, and then he shoots, I think, missiles straight out of his mouth.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the one Dinobot, like the way that he transforms, like he rips off his tail,
yeah,
and the tail then splits to reveal this weird sword.
It's a great looking transformation because it's so bizarre.
And so the pieces of the tail split, between the blades,
like
so
a banana peel.
Yeah, like a banana peel. So the rest of the tail,
it's so gross.
The rest of the tail essentially becomes like the hilt.
Yeah.
Of the sword.
He's basically holding his own bones and then flays the skin from them to use as a sword. It's fucked up, guys.
No, but then later he can remove the hilt and put it on the other hand, and it turns into this weird spinning death thing, but it's not sharp, so it's just like a dick hitting you in the side of the head, I imagine, if you got hit with it. It's just fucking strange.
That's exactly what it is. He also has eye lasers, because why not?
Yeah, because why not?
Everybody has eye lasers.
Velociraptors, evolution gave them eye lasers.
So that's Megatron.
That's lost.
So
Megatron and then Dinobot.
And Dinobot.
Pterosaur.
So we have Scorponok, who is obviously a scorpion.
He looks like an old He-Man villain. I think they actually had a He-Man villain. Yeah. He had the big claws and stuff. So he kind of looks like him, and he really doesn't look all that different.
Knowing He-Man, it would have just been called Clawhand.
Clawhand villain.
That makes sense.
Oh, look out! It's Clawhand villain.
Right.
Didn't he have kind of a southern accent, a little bit of a southern drawl there?
His name was actually just Claude. So that would explain it. Jesus. I'm the best. I'm gonna write for this show.
Get it to that 65 episode mark so they can go into syndication, please.
I love that Scorponok though. He didn't really look any different between his transformation and his robot form. It looked like you just flipped him over and stood him up on 2 legs. He really didn't look any different at all.
Yeah, that one wasn't like as outrageous as some of the other ones.
No, he was fine.
Right.
Do you guys like the other insect? Do you like
Waspinator?
Waspinator. Yeah, Waspinator.
I actually kind of do
Oh,
because
God.
he just seems like so buffoonish.
He was real goofy. I
And-
think people
yeah.
love him though. People love.
Yeah, I think
Waspinator.
that's why he's
His-
just like kind of the goon.
His laser blasts sound like little farts. If you go back and listen to it, he's just like
Yeah, they.
just like little toots.
I think it. I
He's
think
real
it's
cute.
also whenever he like says his name and then he says terrorize. It's like his voice, like he'll say like his name like Waspinator, and then he'll get like his voice will get like super shrill
Yeah.
whenever he says terrorize. Like
That was really
Oh,
good.
that's so good.
That was really good. He gets very excited.
he really does.
He does. So we've got Pterosaur and Waspinator. Those 2 can actually fly while in beast mode. So that's very important, especially for the plot that we'll get into in a second. But
Well, they can fly in beast mode, but they can also fly whenever they're in like robot.
yeah, they
form,
can fly in robot
too.
form too. The only thing is you got to remember that with all this energon around, they can only stay in robot form for a little bit. Anywhere from, like I
Right.
said, 5 seconds to like half the episode. So in beast mode, they're totally chill. They can hang out all day in beast mode. They just don't have access to these weapons. But they can fly either way. I think we hit everybody on the
No, there's the-
tarantulas.
He was pretty
Tarantulas.
wasted in
Yeah.
these episodes. He did have one important part that he never got to play.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a giant tarantula named Tarantulas. So not great there, guys.
Yeah.
They were really.
Did it.
They were just. I imagine they had to have been just sitting there with that office being like tarantulas.
Just add an S. Let's go home.
Fucking nailed it.
Ooh, glad we got that in
$18
before 6 o'clock,
million.
guys. Everybody gets to go home. Yeah, $18 million.
But I think that's
Everyone take a half a day. We've worked
that's
hard
right,
enough
it's
today.
Friday. It's happy hour.
Yeah.
So did we
So
we
we-
get everybody for
we-
the Predacons?
Yeah, I
think
think
so,
we've got
yeah.
everybody. I
Let's-
just want to note that
yeah.
there is in a later later in the season they get a black
They
arachnia
do indeed.
is a Predacon and she's a
Yes.
female.
She's sexy.
Is she?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
She actually looks a lot like Hexadecimal from Reboot.
Oh really?
Or wait, was that her name? Was that the villain? Megabyte and
Yeah.
Hexadecimal? Yeah,
Yeah.
she looks almost exactly like Hexadecimal. You know how Hex had those like weird like cape spine thingies coming off of her back?
Right. Yeah.
It's basically that.
She look like that.
Yeah, she looks like that. It's the same company. So they were just like, we're just going to
True.
slap a new skin on Hexadecimal.
Just
and
go ahead and recycle
she,
this.
she is
Just
now
gotta
Black
have-
Arachnia. Yeah. But there was so while we're talking about
We've only
that-
got $18 million, guys. We only have
Yeah.
$18 million. We have to make this last.
Well, so that's
Clyde,
interesting.
Clyde, slow down. All right, you get a daytime Emmy,
Come on,
and all these
Klotz.
millions just
Stop
went to your head.
klotzing it up. In the beginning,
Oh,
though,
boy.
they only had enough processing power to have relatively few of these characters on screen at a time. Later on, they pumped a ton of these things in. They have a really
Really? Oh,
yeah.
clever kind of mechanic where they have what are essentially blanks. So they're like blank robots that they just kind of eject from their ships. And then once they activate them, you can either, depending on who gets to them first, you can activate them as either a Maximal or a Predacon. So even if it's a Maximal blank that they release, if a Predacon gets to it first and rescans them, they will activate as now a Predacon. So it's almost
and
this-
that's it.
yeah.
And it's interesting because they kind of lay the track for that because
Yeah.
whenever the Maximal ship's going down, they're like, oh, we have to launch all the stasis
Exactly.
pods out there. So they do a good job in terms of setting this up in terms of long term. This is going to be a series that's going on
Yeah.
that we need to find a way to spice it up later, add new characters as we need. So whenever it starts to get stale, they can just throw one of these stasis pods in and be like, okay, it's a race to go get the stasis pod and turning into whatever side they think needs more toys or whatever like that.
yeah.
Can you imagine if the show had only gone one season and they were just like $18 million, guys,
just
$18 million
run that into
for
space.
we did
the suckers just all just
19
float in space.
episodes.
But no, that was kind of a cool mechanic that we won't get into too much today. We just wanted to mention that because it was a neat way, like Matt said, to introduce new characters
Yeah.
later on and to introduce new tension too. So they're not just fighting over this resource the entire time.
Yeah, so if it ever got like lopsided, like one side
Yeah.
had like a million people,
Yeah,
then it's like, maybe we need to get new characters in here. How are we going to do that? Stasis pod.
Nailed it. Well, they even do that in the beginning because the Predacons have, one or two more than the Maximals.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like 6 to
Mhm.
4 or whatever. So like we mentioned, there's Dinobot. He actually challenges Megatron in the beginning. He's basically Starscream at this point. Okay, so he's
Yeah.
Starscream to Megatron. He challenges.
That's exactly what I wrote down.
Yeah.
I was just like, what?
So he is just Starscream. Matt's looking confused. He just picture another character that's just kind of like second in command, but he wants to be head honcho, and he's kind of a dick, and he's always wrong. But then
He continues
Dinobot
to challenge authority, being Megatron.
So,
which is exactly what he does in the first 2 seconds of this
he defects pretty quickly.
Incredibly quickly.
Like,
as soon as they land and as soon as he gets his like transformation complete, he's just like, I'm out. Fuck this. Or he tries
well,
to
he doesn't
First
say I'm
he
out.
throws the gold coin around menacing, like, look at the gold coin, fuck you guys. Just throws it down and walks away.
And then he gets, and then was it like Tarantulas or
Scorponok that walks out of the shadows and
blasts him across a mountain.
The fucking planet. He's gone. Like he's a blip in the distance. He's like a cartoon, just like blink of a star. He is like, gone.
Watching this, because I'm watching this, I'm thinking to myself, like, did they just kill one of their own?
Yeah.
I honestly thought, I was like, oh,
he
wow,
wasn't one of their own at that point.
They were not joking around in this.
No, they were not.
Like, he's dead.
I love that Scorponok at that point was like the most powerful creature on this planet. Because it was just like,
oh
shit, don't piss that guy off.
About for 5 seconds, because later on during the battles,
worthless. That always frustrated me as a kid watching these shows, though. It was very much, I was like, you guys are firing at everything and you're not hitting shit. It's really irritating. There's always
the gang that can't shoot straight.
Yeah, it's irritating.
It's like something out of the A-Team where it's just like
from Star Wars. They were
stormtroopers. Yeah, anything.
Or they were what was it in G.I. Joe? Remember Bats? They were the robot people that they were like the robot army that Cobra created.
Oh right.
And they were like disposable people.
Yeah, so you could just like knock their
all
heads
the G.I.
off
Joes,
or blow holes in them. So
yeah, G.I. Joes, they had like a little computer panel like in their chest, and like any G.I. Joe could hit one, and they'd be like, "Yeah, I did it, got a bats," and it was just like, those bats would attack.
Bat attack.
Bringing it back. There we go.
Back. So Dinobot basically gets knocked all the way over to the Maximal camp at this point, which is a great time to talk about the actual Maximals. So we've already got Optimus Primal, who is a silverback gorilla. His transformation isn't terrible, but it's not great.
I mean, the whole the legs turning around.
Yeah,
that just seemed impractical.
Yeah, it's all very painful. It's tough to watch if you've got any kind of like body horror issues. This is all tough to watch.
This show's not for you.
It's not for you. What is your either your favorite or your most horrific of the Maximals?
Rhinox is the most
You can take
horrific.
Rhinox? Okay.
Rhinox
Walk
is
us
a
through
rhinoceros. He's a rhinoceros who very like long bodied rhino, and when he transforms, his head pops out of where like the gullet of the rhino would be.
Yeah, like his
and the
uvula
rhino's,
is now his head.
The rhino's top and bottom jaw just split open. And
like a banana.
Like a banana.
This is more like a door hinge, though. Like, it goes from, like, closed to just completely inverted. It's real gross.
And then, like, the bottom half of his jaw
is like
on his chest.
Hanging out on his chest. Just
so gross.
With the teeth out, like it's...
Like its tongue just flopping in the breeze.
Yeah, it's...
It's disturbing. So his is probably the worst.
So weird. His is the worst.
Reuter, did you have a favorite among the Maximals?
In terms of the body transformation or just in general?
I'm just trying to get Rat Trap and Cheetor in here.
What?
I actually, like, as a kid, I remember I really did like Cheetor.
You like Cheetor?
I think it was just because he was fast and he kind of was like he seemed like he was, if you had to establish them as like if they were like actual people, he seemed like he was the very young and experienced one who just wanted to go out and be adventurous and prove himself and everything like that. So I think I liked him for that because it kind of was easier to root for him as a kid because you could relate closer to him if you could relate to any of these characters.
He's basically the Bumblebee for people who are familiar with the original. Well,
yeah, basically,
or the new Bumblebee. Yeah,
I would say so. But again, like in terms of his transformation, like, the Maximals, they keep the heads on like their chests except for Optimus. Everyone else.
His just like it turns around and then just like flips back. So his monkey face is just like facing out the back of his head or buries in his back.
He's got eyes like in the back of his head.
It's not good no matter what.
It's like that character in the Nightmare Before Christmas.
Just has,
whose
like,
head just turns around like the mayor.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and he just flips. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If he's happy or sad, his head just flips around. But no, I remember liking him. I remember Rhinox. I liked Rhinox because he's like the wise old guy.
He's like the tough guy
even
too.
keeled. Yeah, he was. And I remember in a later season, like he like upgrades his weapon, so he gets like this like extremely badass like fully automatic machine gun,
doesn't he
which
have
no one
something-
else on the
yeah,
show
yeah,
had.
yeah.
It's like a mini gun.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's
basically,
like
but
a almost like a-
yeah, like that thing.
like a
I'm
Gatling
sorry,
gun
Sean
or
is
something.
yeah, it's like a Gatling gun.
Yeah.
Sean's showing it to me. Sorry, I'm saying like, hey, that one for an audio podcast.
It's fun.
So remember, I've been thinking like, oh, that's so badass, but he like hardly ever uses it because he seems like he's more apt for like diplomacy.
He's a large Buddhist, is basically what he is.
Yeah, more or less.
All right, we haven't really talked about Rat Trap at all.
Oh boy.
Wow.
Do we want to get into it? Do we want to talk about him?
no skin off my tail, you know.
Hey, look, not for nothing, but we got to talk about Rat Trap now.
He's the most insubordinate, shitty character in the show.
Yeah.
He's like if Mark Wahlberg was an actual Beast Wars Transformer.
Hey guys, how you doing? This is Rat Trap.
Say hi to your mother for me.
I'm gonna go talk to a goat.
He's, for whatever
Hey
reason,
goat,
they
maximize.
decided to like introduce this character who's like, he's the smallest one out of everybody. I don't really know what his purpose is, except to irritate the shit out of Optimus and question his leadership at every step of the way.
Right.
I don't
And it's
really
not
know
even
what
like
else to do.
justified either. It's not
No.
even like, well, maybe he's making some good points. It's like, no, he's just a
No,
shit.
he's just being a dick.
But he has some of the best worst lines
Yeah.
that come out of this show. Like in the second episode, he just goes off for booting up cold. Ugh.
Yeah.
Like
Oh, I
like,
get it, because
for-
they're like machines.
because they're robots. Because
Oh.
they're robots in disguise.
Now I get it.
And they boot up their you know what? I can't even.
Real bad.
I discussed it myself with the over explanation on that one.
Oh, do you
It's
guys
tough.
remember how the Maximals transform? If the Predacons say terrorize, what do the Maximals say?
They say maximize.
Maximize. Interesting. Oh, and anytime a robot wants to go back into beast mode to prevent the Energon causing a seizure of a system, they basically just yell beast mode, and they're totally fine.
Which is interesting whenever they're having a conversation about being in beast mode and they have to say beast mode and then they don't go back into beast mode. I'm like, you're not really playing hard and fast with these rules
Yeah,
here.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a.
And if you could just think it and then do it, why do you need to say
Could
it?
you imagine that if you were just using it in casual conversation, like as a robot, you're like, man, I really got to work on my beast mode charge. Oh, fucking shit! And, then you just, and now you're talking to a rhino.
Oh, it's extremely painful, the transformation
Yeah.
process. I have to split my head in half.
Jesus.
I got this hinge in my jaw. Just it won't set right. Keeps popping.
We need some WD-40 or some shit. Have they
So
invented that yet?
gross. Everything is so gross. All right, that was all our transformations and characters. You want to dip back into the plot of this thing now? It's pretty simplistic, actually. There's not a whole
Yeah.
lot beyond.
Yeah, I mean at this
their rival.
point it's kind of other than the defection of
That is where I want to pick up, actually. So where do we
okay,
where do
and
we see
that's-
Dinobot now that he's been blasted to the other side of the planet?
So after they get into a brawl
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
some
there's a
variety.
small confrontation where you're just like, okay, now we get, as we mentioned with everybody here and all of the Predacons and Maximals, like they sort of do a roll call,
Right.
And so they set up that transaction, they set up that little skirmish, in
Yeah.
order to intro everybody, and so the Autobots have run away, they've retreated,
yes.
and so this is where you pick where
So-
your story.
So
picks up at.
they're heading back to their ship, to their home base, and they come across this. It's like a bridge essentially.
Yeah, stone
that
bridge.
they have to get across. Yes, it's a stone bridge, and Dinobot is there, and apparently not being satisfied with getting rocketed across the planet for challenging authority in his own camp, he decides he's like, all right, I challenge Optimus to a battle, and the winner will then lead your side.
Right.
And basically, he's hell-bent on revenge because he wants to get back at Megatron,
Right.
and he has no one that he can turn to. So he's basically like, I'm gonna kill the leader of the group that hates me, and then force them to be subservient to me, so I can then go back and attack Megatron.
Solid plan.
That's
This-
sound leadership.
Solid
I mean,
plan.
really, when you think about it, where could this possibly go wrong?
Can't see it.
And so they have this battle, and this is the part that irritated me. So
Okay.
Optimus is like, okay,
Yeah, hold
I
on.
have
This
to,
is
like,
the part.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Okay, this is one of
Okay,
the
there we
many
go.
parts.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's where the episode ends, and then the next episode picks up.
Right.
So there's no time that has passed between the two.
Right.
So rather than Dinobot is outnumbered here, 4-1.
Yep.
Even if they're injured, which they have been injured in the battle or whatever like that, and Optimus makes a note of saying that. so everyone knows. And because when they're in beast mode, they don't really show that they're injured.
No, there's like one.
healing.
There's one case where you actually see an injury, but
yes, which is going to be
Yeah.
it's a phenomenal piece of
Yeah.
computer animation later in this episode. Just the absolute
blue sparks.
top notch.
Blue spark.
But they're like, oh, I guess we, and everyone else, Optimus is like, no, I have to go fight this. And everyone's like, yeah, you're right, we can't fight him too. It's like, there's an asshole standing on a bridge, just shoot him, he's gonna fall off. Like, why is it? They're like, no, you're right, because he like slapped him like a duel style back in like the fucking 1700s.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to go about this duel like, I don't know, like honorably. That just was like, fuck you guys, just shoot him. He's your enemy.
That's like his code, you know.
Yeah.
He's the leader, and he's established at that point. He goes, I wouldn't ask anybody to do anything that I would not do myself.
And at
And
the
he's
same
already-
time, it's also Dinobot's code. So his character, as you go through
Right.
the series, he has this kind of
Yes,
he really
that's
sticks to his
true,
code
but-
of honor to a point where he almost has like a 300 type stand where it's him versus all the other Predacons because he is like the last man standing kind of thing. Well, I'll talk about that once I get to the review section, but this is setting up his personality. I agree with you. It's stupid in this first or second episode, but for future, it's nice to set up his kind of honor code, that kind of like Bushido code kind of thing.
I also thought it was kind of ballsy of Dinobot, just because while he's standing there being like, okay, I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to win, and then Optimus is saying like, no, we don't have to do this. Like, you can just join us.
Yeah.
You're welcome to join us, but you won't be the leader.
Right.
And then Dinobot says something. I'm like, boy, you really doubled down on this. Where he's like, I've already changed my programming so that I like, so I'll say maximize now. It's like, wow, you really are hoping that
He's committed.
you're either bluffing right now and hoping that they'll just take you in, or you really think you're gonna win this. Which you know, if you're ever gonna bet on anyone, bet on yourself. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But that was just a real odd line to throw in there. It's like, no, I'm already one of you.
I'm
Do
one
you
of you.
accept me?
Maximize.
No, fuck you guys. I'm one of you. I'm one of you guys.
He's
Don't
like,
worry
I'm
about
gonna maximize. I'm gonna split my tail in half. I'm gonna rip it out by the bone root. I'm gonna turn it into a spinny dick thing, and we're gonna fight. And I'm gonna shoot you with my eye lasers. And this
it.
all
So
happens
basically, they do battle
on this bridge, on
Optimus-
this perilously
this-
skinny
this-
rock bridge.
Yeah, of course. And meanwhile, while they're fighting, and all of the Maximals are on the one side of the bridge, just watching
chilling.
this, cheering. I guess
Yeah.
they're not even cheering; they're just watching.
No, they're just kind of fighting amongst
Um,
themselves because like Cheetor wants to go in and help. Rhinox
And
and
Rhinox is
Rat
being
Trap
like,
are like, no,
no.
just sit your ass down. It's fine.
Well, because it seems like Rat Trap kind of wants Optimus to die.
Yeah, Rat Trap wants Optimus to like learn a lesson or whatever. Rhinox is just trying to like kind of keep the peace, but he doesn't really seem to care. And then Cheetor wants to get in there.
In that previous skirmish, Rat Trap and Optimus had given Rat Trap a direct line, and his response goes, "I'm not getting in and getting my pelt punctured." And you're just like, whoa, okay.
So
I love all those animal puns.
He's
Calm
the one
down,
that
Rat Trap.
complains the most about any kind of actual like physical violence that he has to engage in because like he's the one that mentions they're just an exploratory scout ship. So I think he's kind of like a tech guy. He's eventually he becomes sort of
He's also the smallest,
Yes,
so maybe it's like he's the most vulnerable if there's ever an attack.
yeah, he
'cause
later
can get crushed pretty easy.
Yeah, and he later becomes sort of their stealth operative. He can kind of like sneak through small spaces and he can kind of sneak by unnoticed, and he eventually has a place and a use. But for right now, like even Rhinox has to literally just like lift him up and point him in the direction of where to shoot to get him to shoot anybody to actually do anything, because otherwise he'll just slink off into the shadows. So at this point, Rat Trap is kind of more of an asshole than Dinobot is, because at least he's fighting to do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, at least
And I
Dinobot
think-
has a code of honor of
And
some variety.
And to that point, what you just said, Dave, like he is being more of an asshole, and Optimus is at this point where he's like, I am going to show that I am the leader. Like, I'll take this guy on one-on-one. I win. I'm establishing my dominance, which is what any primate does in a social living situation.
Yeah, it's very true.
Nailed it,
Alpha
true to
male.
form.
So while they're fighting, apparently the
Predacon.
not the Predacons. I almost said Decepticons.
Oh, good.
The Predacons have been tracking them. And
Were they even
they're
tracking
from
them?
a
It just seems like they're just out for a stroll, and they're just like, oh, look what's going on over there.
I mean, I assume because otherwise, like,
I don't
how the
know.
fuck did they get there?
I
And
don't
they
know.
find
It
them?
doesn't
I don't
make
know.
any
It
sense.
doesn't
Planet.
make any sense.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't make sense. Anyway, so they spot them from like a good distance too. So they're like, oh, we're gonna basically give it a surprise attack, and we're gonna gun them down from a good distance. So they just like unload on everyone that's over there, on Optimus and Dinobot when they're on the bridge. So of course they blow up the bridge, in the classic like TV trope where the bridge is collapsing and you gotta run. to try to like not fall down
in
into the
slow
gorge.
motion, in painfully
in slow motion.
painfully animated CG slow motion. This was rough.
But
This
before
is
that,
actually how he got. This is how Clyde got that daytime.
Yeah, from
movie.
that scene.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
that bridge scene.
Ooh.
that's what did it.
Gross.
But before that happens, I'm sorry, I'll backtrack here for 2 seconds. Optimus Prime was about to Optimus was about to fall off of the bridge, and Dinobot basically reaches down and saves him.
Yeah, they have this kind of like alternating things where they save each other. So Dinobot is squaring off against Optimus in kind of this like King Kong versus Godzilla kind of thing. But then Optimus at one point he's just like, all right, and he just slugs him in the jaw and basically knocks Dinobot like goofy. So at that point you think Optimus wins, but actually Dinobot isn't like, he's not down for the count. He's gonna keep fighting. He's like, no, we're gonna fight to the death and finish this.
He's
Then
doing a rope-a-dope.
what's that?
Yeah.
Rope-a-dope?
He's doing a rope-a-dope.
He's doing the rope-a-dope.
So they have this, they trade back and forth, and then like Matt mentioned, Optimus is kind of hanging precariously from this bridge, and Dinobot helps him back up. But then at this point, they get attacked by the Predacons.
Yeah, and the reason that he claims that he saved him was because Dinobot says like, oh, you basically tripped. I didn't do that to you. So if you were to die, like it wouldn't be
It's not an honorable
true
victory.
win for. Yeah, it's not an honorable victory
Yeah.
for me. So again, it's established like he's a dick, but he's establishing some weird moral code.
And they have that moment where they get like dangerously close to each other, and he's just like,
was
"You
sexy.
have qualities that I like," and the other
Yeah.
guy's like, "You have qualities that I admire as well." And I'm like, kiss.
I wrote down like, just make out already, you
Oh,
guys. Just get a
kiss,
room.
Do it.
Just do it. Make weird freak robot babies.
It's just like sheet metal flapping against
just
sheet metal.
Sparks and grinding.
Mm.
Little spark and grind. Yeah.
So after the bridge blows up, and something happens here, and maybe someone can enlighten me on some of this.
Probably not.
Because this is the point where like a missile out of God knows where comes and blows up the side of the mountain, revealing a large energon deposit.
So I think that was another one of Scorponok's missiles, because these things pack a hell of a punch.
I guess
so. Like
maybe
Optimus,
that's the
Optimus
only
tackles
explanation.
Dinobot out of the way, and then this missile blows up like the side of a mountain. Like Matt said, literally half of this mountaintop just gets blown away to reveal this giant, shiny purple energon crystal.
Like, and they were like, they said something like, "Oh, the missile," and then it blows up. And I was like, "Wait, what the missile? Like, what missile are they talking about?" Because that looked like that came from space, and I was like, "Is there another ship? Like, did we miss something? Did
It's
I
just
miss
one of
something?"
Scorponok's missiles.
It came from the gold coin.
Yeah, it came from that gold coin.
Sure.
Right.
Okay, there you go.
No, I'm kidding.
All right, unfortunately, we're
Not.
getting a little short on time here, so we're gonna have to wrap the plot up here. Basically, what happens is everybody heads towards this energy mountain, and as the closer they get, the less they can spend time in their robot forms. So it all culminates in this kind of massive battle between the two factions. So everybody kind of squares off. This time, you've got Optimus taking on Megatron, so it is more like King Kong and Godzilla at this point. And they're trading back and forth every once in a while. Megatron gets his head stuck in a rock at one point. That was kind of goofy. Here's where battle damage happens, right? So Megatron gets to take a big old chunk out of Optimus's leg. And that's when you see the fantastic animation of just like a gaping hole with just like blue sparks shooting out of it. But it was still less still less horrific than watching these transformations. Eventually,
maybe,
like Optimus gets the upper hand, but then Megatron is just, at this point, he's like, well, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to take you with me. And he fires a shot at him. And then what happens? Because Optimus is basically like laid out. He's point blank. So then what happened? You guys remember?
I believe the mountain explodes.
Well,
and
before
they all just get
Briefly before that, there's another slow-mo shot from Clyde Clot. Dinobot comes running across, and he flips. Flicks the little missile with his tail just enough to miss Optimus and blow up the entire mountain instead.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
And that's pretty much.
I think at that point I was just so checked out. I was just like, "Oh my god, you got to be kidding me with this!"
So somehow all the Maximals escape. They like ride on Rhinox's back, and they just escape the mountain explosion.
Well, they do have this moment where Rhinox is like, "It's gonna blow," and he is making like the derpiest face.
He really is.
His eyes are kind of like rolled back because
he's
like,
in.
It's gonna blow.
Isn't he in Rhinox form at this point? So he's kind of got rhino eye.
Yeah, he's like he's a rhino, and so Rhinox is. He's just got like this wandering like eye that's just jumping all over the place, and he's like, "It's gonna blow!" I just started laughing so hard. I was like, this is ridiculous.
But the best moment probably comes at the very end, where all the Maximals are
Yes.
safe. They think Megatron might be dead, and Rat Trap, in his usual, personality, is like, "Okay, everything's done, right? Can we get the hell out of here now? Can we go home? Is it time to go home yet? Tired of
get
this
outta
place. Let's get
here."
out of here." And Optimus basically turns to do his last monologue, and he's like, "No, we will stay on this primitive planet to battle the Predacons in order to prevent them from getting Energon, and it will be called Beast Wars."
It was the real James Bond moment in the movie where like someone just sits around and explains the plot to you just in case you missed it.
Right, exactly. Do you guys have anything from these episodes before we move on to some other thing?
I have two quick things.
Okay, go ahead.
Matt, do you have anything?
Let me check my notes here real quick, but go ahead, Sean.
Okay. I found it very funny that they snuck in the actual line "robots in disguise"
How they did? How'd they do
into
that?
the show.
missed
Yeah, into the first episode, which is very funny. They're like, "What are we gonna do?
Yeah.
We're robots in disguise," and I was like, "Ugh, facepalm." And then my favorite moment is where Rhinox is traveling as a rhino,
Yeah.
and he has Optimus Primal as the silverback ape riding on his back, and then on top of Optimus Primal is Rat Trap as a rat, and so it's this triple stack of
Just Animal Bot.
of
That's how evolution works, Sean.
this triple stack of animals, and they look so bored to be. They looked as bored to be on Rhinox's back as I was to watch this show. And it was amazing.
Matt,
It was. I need to find. I want that to be just a meme that I can look at anytime I'm upset about anything, and I can just instantly smile.
dude, I
that
tried my
moment.
damnedest to find a walking GIF of those guys. Just
I saw the
so
picture you
I
sent
saw the
out.
picture, but I
bad.
couldn't find a GIF of them just like casually walking across the plains forever.
Make one.
I'm sure it's out there
It's
somewhere.
it's
Matt, did you have
perfect.
anything
I'm
else
sure
from
it
these episodes? I had one more
No,
line. That was it for me.
I didn't have any lines specifically, but whenever they're in their beast mode and just whenever they get like the surprise facial reaction, like there's a point where like Cheetor or the other cheetahs
so
that
bad.
Cheetor was running
Yes.
alongside,
Yeah.
like they go like super wide eyed or whatever like that. Like
They go bug-eyed. They go
yeah, they
crazy
completely
bug-eyed.
Yeah. And like it was just
They have like
hilarious,
the
just seeing-
heaviest fucking eyebrows I've ever seen in an animation.
Yeah,
Just,
they
like,
really
giant,
do.
chunky Duplo blocks on top of their eyes.
Well, their eyes widen when
Yeah, like
Cheetor's running next to them. Their eyes widen, their eyebrows go up, and then their pupils get dilated. And
It's like a
I'm like,
very
that's-
comic effect, but you can see a lot of that crossover from Reboot. So
yeah.
I
did like
I
Reboot
had
a
one
lot.
more line from Rat Trap.
Okay.
So this was the line when Dinobot and Optimus Primal are fighting, and they're basically like, "Oh, should we step in and stop them?" And he's like, "Let Chopperface and the Boss Monkey duke it out. No skin off of my tail."
Oh boy.
An asshole. Little furry asshole.
Oh,
Consummate professional that he is.
the puns, the animal-based puns.
Well, since that's going to wrap it up for our recap of the episode, we are going to get to the review portion. I've got a couple here to share with you guys before I get your opinions. So
Let's do it.
the first one I have is an actual recommendation of an episode. So from the listeners and the users out there, season 2, episode 9, called Code of Hero, and what happens in this episode is the Predacons proceed to apparently annihilate humanity, or at least that's their plan, and Dinobot puts himself in between those two. So he fights the entire Predacon army in order to keep history, like, to maintain history. And that, I think, is one of the most, like, favorited episodes from the fandom out there. So if you're really looking for a good example of this show, check that one out. Only watch this pilot to kind of get an idea of what's supposed to be going on. I do have a review here from Delia from New York back in 1999. You guys will indulge me.
This is so good. Please.
It's from IMDb. It is titled "Good Action/Adventure and Fun Comedy." I never saw the first series. I only started watching Beast Wars to keep an eye on my son, but I am hooked. The action adventure is passable and sometimes excellent with startlingly good animation. But the comedy! When Dinobot said, "Alas, poor tarantulas, I knew him, Rat Trap. I just about fell off my chair." Episodes will play on Shakespeare, old westerns, other toys and series. Anything's fair game. That's from Delia. Probably a 5-star review.
You're the best dealer.
Used
that's
it.
actually not a bad line. The last sports ranch.
It's not a bad-
I
it's
knew
not a
him,
bad-
Rat Trap.
It's not the worst.
Not bad. She used it as a babysitter. That's pretty bad. But, what do you... So how about you guys? Do you recommend people check the show out? Matt.
I will let Matt, our guest.
I mean, I will say this. I would be curious to see how the other episodes, if they hold up a lot better than this one did. I'm still holding on to the nostalgia, like that, at some point in time, this show was actually good. I was not just an idiot kid that was watching absolute garbage. So I would say, yes, kind of similar to what you said, Dave. Like if you have never seen it before and you're looking for a new cartoon to get into, watch the pilot so you have a bit of an idea of what's going on. Because from here on out, I mean, they're relatively bottle episodes. Like they're just weekly serials. You don't need to know a whole lot about the rivalry. You just know these guys are good, these guys are bad. Yeah. So I would say maybe in later seasons it gets better. I certainly hope so. But these first couple were rough.
John, how about you?
This is going to be surprising.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to recommend it.
Yeah?
I'm going to recommend
Grudgingly.
this.
Really?
I think because if you enjoy Transformers, this is a part of the Transformers lore. And if you are able to watch some of the older Transformers series, I think you kind of owe it to yourself to dip your toe in the Beast Wars lake and see if it's something that you like. And we've mentioned that it does get better.
I love the ringing endorsement. Guys, it gets better.
It gets better. That sounds like I'm like a teen positivity ad.
Yeah. It's like it's describing to someone why you keep smoking. It's like, I know you feel sick at the beginning, but just keep doing it. It gets better.
I think that it builds once they get some of the animation down, and so
right.
Even if you don't do that, even if you watch these first 2 episodes and you get a good laugh out of them, like I did, at sort of some of the tip of the cap to some of the other Transformers series, I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Even just to watch and think to yourself, like, they named one character after an entire race of Autobots. They just named him Dinobot. Like, that's ridiculous enough for me to think, yeah, I'll watch 1 or 2 episodes. Yeah. I'm on board.
No, I'm with you guys.
Dave?
I'd say definitely check out the first 2 and then just kind of give the animation a pass and then look for some of the fan favorite ones and just get into the story. I think it's kind of cool when some of the new characters come along too. It changes things up a little bit. And once they get more into the individual episodes, like Matt was saying, you actually get more of a character breakdown for each of the different characters. So they're not just like a guy that looks like a scorpion and fires crazy missiles. Like, you actually get more characterization of each of them as it goes on. Because they had plenty of time to do it. They had 52 episodes. You watch one every week and it'd be different. So, I'd say check it out. Now, that being said, Matt, would you like to see this rebooted? And keep in mind, I believe it's Paramount, has 10 years of Transformers movies already planned out. So there's a good chance you might see some sort of Beast Wars, some sort of fashion.
Are you saying a Beast Wars movie or a reboot of the television show?
I'm asking if you'd like to see this show in a new version no matter what. And I'm just warning you that there may happen to be a Beast Wars something movie in the future. We don't know for sure. It's just a possibility. Do you want it to happen or not?
I mean,
basically?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same way that, like, as if anything you watch as a kid, even if it's been years removed since you have actually watched it, and they come out with a new movie or a new TV show or something like that, like, you'll go and see it. I mean, so yes, I would absolutely like to see it because I think obviously the CGI has come light years from then. So if nothing more, it'll be a better looking television show or a movie. But yeah, I mean, it's always going to have the nostalgia factor for me. So of course, if they came out with something, TV show, movie, or whatever, I would certainly watch it.
Cool. John, how about you?
No, I'm gonna pass on a reboot for this guy.
You gonna stick with the original?
Yeah, stick with the original. I just don't think it's necessary. I'd be more curious to put Transformers in the capable hands of a director and writer who would actually respect this intellectual property.
Bob Ford, we're talking about
put it back in Bob Ford's hand. Yeah. If he just can pass over another $18 million check, I would be happy to write this movie.
I wouldn't get you one episode these days.
Oof. I'll still do it.
I'll do it for the love. Saturday Morning Cartoons brings you Beast Wars.
Beast Wars.
Look, man. I'm sorry.
How are you feeling about the reboot? No, I'm done.
I would, like Matt said, I would like to see a new version of it, but I don't know how you degross these transformations. I don't think there's a way you can do it really, unless you do kind of like a weird, unless you mask it and do some sort of like electronic disturbance kind of thing, so you don't see it actually transform. But then that takes away the fun of it. It's just really disturbing when you see them transform from apparently flesh and blood creatures into robots in disguise.
What if it was all off screen? What if they just said it like off screen and you turn like they were in an animal form and then
they just sidestep and then come back?
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Hey guys. I mean that takes away the fun of it, which is the transformations. But these things are just horrific. They got to find another way to do it, or at least explain to kids ahead of time that like we are not just eviscerating and turning animals inside out. We're please don't do this at home. Please don't make your own transformers out of rats at home.
Oh, God. Mom, look what I did to Rat Trap. Oh, God.
Now let's put them back together. Why isn't it working? Beast mode.
Come on, beast mode, little buddy.
Based on a true story.
Oh, my God.
Please don't do that at home.
That's actually why they didn't make it to 65 episodes. At episode 56,
Yeah,
they got word
little
that someone
Timmy
had done
eviscerated a peregrine falcon one day. All right, that's going to wrap it up for Beast Wars Transformers. Mr. Matt Reuter, thank you very much for joining us tonight and suggesting
Thank you guys
the
for
show.
having me. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Do you have any social media outlets or things coming up that you'd like the folks out there to know about?
Yeah, actually. So a friend of mine, of ours, actually, Aviv and I have started a podcast sort of similar to this, but we watch and break down every episode of Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
Man.
So when is this coming out? Is this coming out in the next?
This will come out the beginning of November.
Okay, so this should be up. You should be able to get it on iTunes. It's called Law and Order Special Viewing Unit.
Nice.
So hopefully,
lawsuit impending.
yeah, exactly.
Cease and desist.
And you can follow that podcast at the Twitter handle Special Viewing Unit or email us at specialviewingunit@gmail.com.
Awesome. Do you have a personal Twitter or anything that you'd like to give out?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Matthew Reuter 0 is my handle.
And we will have that all up on the website as well, too, so you don't have to worry about jotting down that info. Sean, how about you, buddy? What have you been up to?
I'm going to be at the Philadelphia Improv Festival performing at 10 p.m. Saturday, November the 7th, along with Knox. And then I just have a bunch of shows that have just been announced for the rest of November and December, and you can find them all on witdc.org. The list is pretty comprehensive, so I'll just put everything on the website.
Sounds good. Where can folks?
And you can find me on the Turs and the Grams at Sean Paul Ellis.
Every time.
And I only do it because I know you shake your head and you hate me for saying it.
It just gets shorter every week. It's just at some point it's just going to be the T's and the I's.
You can find me on the T's and the I's at Sean Paul Ellis. So, hey Dave, what do you got going on, buddy?
Oh, I'm still working over at Collider.com, reviewing weekly TV shows such as The Flash, Arrow, and The Walking Dead. You can check us out over there. We got plenty of news going on. We're covering a lot of Star Wars stuff. We just had a lot of fun with the Back to the Future Day not too long ago. So a lot of cool, fun stuff, geeky stuff, nerdy stuff. Maybe you'll actually learn something over at Collider.com. If you want to learn more about Saturday morning cartoons, you can do so by visiting our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. You can follow us along on Twitter at MorningTunes. Remember, that's morning with a U. We've also got a Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. That's where Sean's handiwork is on display, a bunch of gifts, a bunch of weird commercials and videos and all kinds of fun stuff that he finds on the internet there. We've got a Facebook page. We've got a YouTube account. You can download our podcast each and every week through iTunes and Stitcher. And if you want to drop us a line and suggest an episode like Mr. Matt Reuter did, you can send us an email, SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. That's going to wrap it up for Beast Wars Transformers. Next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons, we're going to have a very special guest. He's done riding that hobo train. It'll be good to welcome him back for Hulk Hogan's Rockin' Wrestling. I don't know what to do with that one.
Oh, boy. Can I welcome back Mr. Bag of Sandwiches himself?
Whole bag of sandwiches.
Yep.
For new listeners, you're very confused. For old-time listeners, you're probably grinning ear to ear right now. Mr. Matt Barron will be back. Riding the rails. His bag of sandwiches. All right. Once again, we want to thank Mr. Matt Reuter for joining us. It's been a pleasure, as always. We welcome you back anytime in the future.
Thanks, guys.
All right. This has been Saturday Morning Cartoons. Thanks for listening. We will see you next time.